Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is PLM in 15 minutes. My name is Peter Bilello. I'm CIMdata's president and CEO. CIMdata is a management consulting firm that focuses on product lifecycle management. To us, PLM is a strategic business approach that cuts across all industries that provide products and services to the market. If you want to pause this video at any time, please feel free to do so. Many of the slides have much more information on them than I'm going to review in this quick 15-minute presentation. CIMdata services fall into three categories: research, education, and consulting. We've been working since 1983 to build out an understanding of what has become the PLM market. And if you have questions about this or are more interested in what CIMdata does, please take a look at CIMdata.com. So let's jump right in and take a look at what companies need to do in order to survive today. In today's complex market of globalization, significant pricing pressures from all angles, increased product complexity, and higher levels of competition, companies need to drive towards product and process innovation. Because without doing so, your time to market, your lower costs, and your quality targets will not be met. So innovation is core to a company's survival long term, and that's at the core of what product lifecycle management is all about. There should be no doubt innovation drives a competitive advantage. And innovation starts with your intellectual assets. They are what drive innovation. These are the organization's internal knowledge and strategic assets, and they're the ones that generate new ideas, new ways of working, new products, new delivery mechanisms. And innovation drives a competitive advantage because it keeps your competitors guessing and keeps them trying to play catch up with you. Now, it's important to note that innovation takes many forms. Certainly product innovation, which is the most common most people think about, but process innovation. You could be building a commodity, but the way you do it, the way you manufacture it, the way you distribute it can be innovative in itself. So don't think about innovation only in product terms. Think about it in product and process terms, but also look at the information sets that you have, because there might be hidden gold, things that provide new opportunities and maybe even creating something from nothing. So let's focus down on product and process innovation. These are key in order to gain a competitive advantage or keep a competitive advantage and maximize your return on investment from a lifecycle perspective. Some strategic value innovation certainly is to establish competitive dominance, to stay in an industry and stay ahead of your competitors, to excite your employees, your stakeholders, to retain customers as well throughout the life cycle as they see you innovating in what you do and how you do it and what you deliver to the market. There's a 10% annual revenue rule that most people talk about. If you're not replacing 10% of your revenue stream with other new capabilities, new services, new products, someone else will do that. And if you have a 5-year kind of cycle, and if you're not on that 5-year deadline, so to speak, of innovating in what you do and how you do it, or a combination of those two things, then someone else is probably going to disrupt you. So there's keys to the momentum, right? The time, as I mentioned already, and the information. And at the core of product lifecycle management is making sure that you get right to market, the right products to the right market, the right time at the right cost. So where does innovation take place? If you take a look at the life cycle, the basic formula is that you create product information, so information about the products, the processes by which they're brought to market and maintained, and then you transform those digital assets into the physical deliverables, those deliverable assets. Innovation doesn't just take place during the transformation process, but it needs to be the foundations must take place during intellectual asset creation and management, all the way through delivery of the physical assets for the life cycle. The next critical question to ask is who innovates? So when you think about it, at the core of any business is not money, by the way. It's people. People are the ones that create intellectual assets or use information to create an asset from that. And they're the ones that actually convert that into something that's physical, something that's a deliverable asset. Obviously using money and finances and facilities to go do that. But at the core are the intellectual assets and the individuals that create and use those intellectual assets. So where's the starting point? Creating and managing intellectual assets to enable innovation, because traditionally the knowledge of the organization is a sum of which is held by its people. And most people hold different forms of information, usually patterns, information sets, but the systems do that as well. And what you need to do within an organization is build out from the zeros and ones, build out information relationships like bills and materials into patterns, and ultimately delivering the information, the knowledge, the information relationships, and others to individuals so that they can enable innovation, but by providing the right context and understanding. So how do you enable innovation? There's a couple of major components to it. I already talked about time, providing time and information that's valid for use, but it's also about working in a collaborative manner. All organizations are made up of individuals. Some individuals have certain knowledge that other individuals don't. So the better that you can collaborate or you can connect information with information, but also more importantly, people to people and people to information, reducing the barriers of interaction, providing social capabilities that really drive innovation and providing innovation a foundation of shared information, shared understanding, shared context, and which really provides the ability then to capture knowledge so they can be reused. It becomes an intellectual asset for the business instead of for individuals, providing better access to information, but also again to the people and done throughout the extended enterprise. So let's define intellectual assets. Intellectual assets we're talking about are product related, right? It's the things that define the product itself. They could be mechanical definitions, electrical software, formulas, recipes, specifications, documents, usually a combination of those things that are defined and put together in a baseline that defines the product. But there's also the definition of processes. So how will I produce it? How will I source it? How will I maintain it? How will I decommission it or commission it? These are all part of the product definition. At the end of the day, the product and services you deliver to the market is a result, again, of that product definition and the associated process definition. So let's define PLM in a little bit more detail. We talk about right to market, getting the right products to the right market, the right time, at the right cost, ultimately to maximize your return investment. There's some main characteristics of product lifecycle management. First, and foremost, it's a strategic business approach. It's enabled usually by processes, obviously, but also technologies, but not always technologies. It's the way of working to get right to market each and every time and maintain in market. And that means it's an extended enterprise issue. It goes from idea or ideation all the way through life. And through life could mean recycling, repurposing, and re-engineering and others. And it's really ability to be able to orchestrate across the optimization of the systems of systems, where you have the products as systems, you have manufacturing, service, and others as systems, to deliver the vision of PLM, which is a digital transformation, end-to-end digital transformation of the product lifecycle. So let's talk about the goals of product lifecycle management. And doing this in a more connective end-to-end approach actually results in quite a number of benefits. And these are just the high-level ones. First, getting to market faster, doing it more cost efficiently, usually getting and beating your competitors to market allow you to have premium pricing for a specific period of time, being able to maximize profitability as you have the product in the market and you maintain that product in the market correctly, usually drives a larger market share, but also being able to improve the way that and the efficiency you have in service operations if that's critical to your business. So ultimately, managing your intellectual assets throughout the complete life cycle is critical to most organizations. It's critical to understand that PLM requires end-to-end connectivity because information flows from requirements through the development cycle, through production, all the way through recycling, repurposing, remanufacturing. And PLM, Product Lifecycle Management, is really building out the digital thread and digital twins that are needed from, again, concept through life for any kind of company. Companies that produce something, maybe a discrete manufacturer or process manufacturer, but also non-manufacturing industries also need PLM, Product Lifecycle Management. Insurance companies, banking organizations, for example, financial organizations, they all have products that should be maintained from concept through life. What about spanning products? So I've talked a little bit about products. So products are things that you deliver to market. It can also be a plant. It also could be infrastructure. It could be utilities. It could be facilities. These are all products that are defined by information and process by which those things are created, produced, assembled, maintained. Again, information. So it's anything any product or service that you have in the market. Those are what products that we're discussing here. At the core of a business, as I mentioned earlier, are intellectual assets, but also the physical assets of people, finances, and facilities. The money, again, at the end of the day, is a result of having good intellectual assets and people that convert that from a digital environment into a physical environment. If I apply PLM to this, product lifecycle management, as a strategic business approach, I'm managing the intellectual assets, the creation and dissemination of those assets and definitions into other transaction-based systems such as enterprise resource planning, supply chain management, and customer relationship management. What we're seeing is a divergence and emerging of three major IT domains: the PLM domain dealing with intellectual assets and the ERP domain dealing with deliverable assets, with MES kind of bridging the two, where PLM is telling the manufacturing execution systems what to do and how to do it, and ERP is telling it when to do it. PLM's vision is to deliver a truly integrated environment where everyone has access to a collaborative server and knowledge repository that contains all the latest information around the products and processes by which the product and services get delivered and supported in the market. Today's PLM environments are looking to enable product and process innovation, providing a true collaborative knowledge repository where everyone has access to current unambiguous product information, where collaborative services provide the right information to the right people at the right time throughout the extended enterprise. Today's product lifecycle management environments are enabled by product innovation platforms. At the core of these platforms is data and process management, and the release of requirements, and these requirements can be anything that you make a decision on, so that we understand that what we do is based upon valid information that is readily accessible to those who need it. Underpinning this is what is typically called a modeling and simulation platform. These platforms model information and simulate that information. It could be simulating product, simulating processes, building and defining routings, defining BOMs, and other product structures. Wrapped around this is what we call a set of functional domains, being able to manage the portfolio of products and projects, being able to go through and support system ideation and realization, ensuring that you're profitable throughout, that you have the right quality and compliance, and that you're doing the things that can be maintained through the life of the products and services. And using the ability to basically do what we call multidisciplinary lifecycle optimization, so that the optimization is dealing with the full lifecycle, not just parts of the lifecycle. Just to put things into context, digitalization that many companies talk about today, or digital transformation, is not new. We've been going after the digitalization of our product lifecycle management abilities for decades now. Kind of starting originally with task automation into concurrent engineering, building out more integrated environments and go support time to market reductions into collaboration, to where we're today is really a more holistic view from an end-to-end perspective and a lifecycle optimization perspective. And that's what today's PLMs, product that are being enabled through product innovation platforms, are striving to do. We wouldn't do PLM justice today if we didn't talk about AI, especially generative AI. Generative AI has exploded on the scenes in the last few years, but AI in general, machine learning, and other AI capabilities have been around in the PLM space for some time. But with generative AI, it's really exploded quite significantly, and we expect it to provide significant benefits to those that drive PLM to be a foundational element of its product lifecycle management environment. So what are the major drivers for PLM implementations? Well, it's really dealing with increased complexity, product complexity, design supply chain complexity, and lack of resources. Those are kind of the driving forces for PLM today. There should be no doubt a holistic PLM strategy and implementation is required, because so many companies are dealing with a disconnection of data and processes which drive inefficiency, that you really need to look for PLM to provide a single, common, or logical source of the truth of product and process related information, the intellectual assets of the business, so that you can connect the disconnected. And this is what was so important for PLM. It should not be considered as a system, a computer system, an IT system, but of a way of working, a strategic business approach. The bottom line, PLM matters. Without PLM, you will not be able to optimize your product lifecycle. You will be able to, you won't be able to optimize your processes. You won't be able to enable AI in a way that actually provides a competitive advantage. So information needs to be accurate and available to those who need it to make decisions as quickly as possible. So with that, that's PLM in 15 minutes. Feel free to contact CIMdata. There's more information online. There's other classes that we support. And I will leave you at this point. Thank you very much.